That's what you ordered. Isn't she a beaut? Yeah, but I thought I ordered a cinema camera.
It's been a long...
It's not about the size of the gun. It's about the man pulling the trigger. Are you questioning your own capabilities? So you're telling me that this is all I need? That's all you need. Unless, of course, you're trying to look cool on Instagram. It's so minimalist, the ultimate.
Where am I going?
Do you have any idea of what this little 4x4 box is capable of? Today, we are going to be talking about the true minimalist cinema rig, the red Komodo, and I wanted to make this video just to set the record straight. So there's just a lot of talk that I see online, and even now I'm fairly new to Clubhouse, so if you guys are on there, check me out at Kid Tech. And even on set face-to-face, I hear it all the time, people saying, oh, you know, the Komodo is cool and all, but you know, you're looking at a camera that is gonna cost way more money to actually be able to use it. And a lot of people think that crazy wild number that they're pulling out of their butts is 10 grand, and I don't agree with that. This literally right here is all you really need, which is really quite impressive. So the whole point of today's video is to set the record straight on that and show the #1 ultimate minimalist cinema rig that you can have with the red Komodo, but also set the record straight on the most minimalist price tag when talking about this camera, using it in a fully functional and convenient way. The first thing that you are not going to be able to avoid is the price of the brain. And I've seen them going for quite high, to be honest, anywhere from, you know, $9,000 to $13,000 for a used Komodo in the current time of February 11th, 2021, right? Now, if you have the patience, just put in the order at red.com and you can easily get it for the base price of $6 grand for the black production model. Now, for the sake of the video and getting too crazy with logistics and everything, I'm not going to talk about tax and shipping, but the reality is it is a red digital cinema camera. Let's not forget about what you're purchasing. Now, the next thing is you are going to need power. The cool thing is the integration of these Canon batteries was really stellar and smart on Red's behalf. One, these Canon BP955s, 2 of these last 4 hours. Now, to my knowledge, Red don't have a whole lot of approved batteries. Maybe Blue Shape is one of the newest ones, I'm not sure. However, from my understanding, I'm pretty sure that Blue Shape only make the 975s, and those are much larger, and now we're getting away from the minimalist world, right? In my opinion, you know, you might as well just get something like this. What you guys saw in my AKS video is the wooden camera battery slide, right? If you wanted to go something like that route. We're not gonna get into that. I'm constantly having to tell people, not only in real life on my own sets that I work on, but also, you know, just in social media all the time, I always say, let's keep things in perspective, right? And here's the biggest problem with when people say it's gonna cost you a lot more to get the Komodo running. And the argument always is, oh yeah, you gotta add battery, you gotta add monitor, you gotta add follow focus, you gotta add matte box. All this stuff that I'm sitting there going, that would be literally any camera on the market. So this is not something exclusive to the red Komodo. So again, let's keep things in perspective, folks, right? But the fact that 2 of these 955s last 4 hours and they're hot swappable, that is stellar, right? This little kit right here, I easily throw into this little DSLR bag, this little bag right here, right? This whole thing just drops in here. This is just a, you know, run-of-the-mill small rig camera bag, and away you go, you know? So it is pretty cool having something like a red digital cinema camera in a small form factor, like a rangefinder camera, like analog camera almost. It's that tiny, and away you go, and you can produce some amazing images with what I have in my hand right here. To my knowledge, Red have not approved a whole lot of companies. Obviously, right out the gate, they approved the Canon batteries right away. They have now started producing their own BP955s with the cool red insignia on it, or you could gamble and go the Wasabi route. Now, when I first got my Komodo back in September of last year, I was forced to go the Wasabi route because there was literally no Canon BP955s to be found anywhere. And Wasabis are only like $20 a pop. So for $45, you can get 2 Wasabi batteries. Now it is a gamble, right? I'm not promoting that, but if you had to go that route, if you're just completely squeezed on your budget, you could do it. And I think in my experience, you would be okay for the most part. The Wasabis aren't that bad, to be honest. And they get the same amount of time. My 2 Wasabis get the same amount of time as these Canons, right? But as soon as I saw these Canons pop up on the used market here in LA, I snagged them up. Now, to give you an idea of the range of that, I picked one up for 60 bucks. The other one I picked up months later for $165, right? But now finally Canon does have them back on the market new, and I think they run about $250 a piece, so they're still not cheap. The good news about this is that these are old school from old Canon cinema cameras. So these batteries are everywhere. So chances are, if you look in whatever area you're in the used market, hop on your computer there, look on Facebook Market, look on ShareGrid, offer up Craigslist if you have to, right? And just put little flags out for these Canon BP955 batteries. And chances are, if you're a little patient, you'll see them pop up. Now, because of the differences between if you want to go a generic route, you want to go approved route, and just versus new versus used, the range of price is really hard to gauge here. So I'm just putting out an average, and a pretty generous average at that. And I'm saying, well, if we look at the average between, you know, super unapproved like Wasabi's all the way up to like brand new 250, you know, an average of that would be about $130 per battery. So I would say at least try to give yourself a budget of somewhere from $250 to $300 for batteries alone. Now I know, you know, especially, I don't know where you're coming from, but you know, first sign of that is like, oh, holy cow, that's a lot of money. But the reality is that's really the price of like one V-mount battery, right? So you got to keep things in perspective here, folks. You know, when you enter into this world, you are entering into a whole new level of professionalism. The Komodo really isn't for hobbyists unless you're just like ridiculously rich or something, right? I think it's more geared towards professionals, small businesses like myself, or just anyone who's looking to level up and kind of take that transition into professional cinematography work. This may be considered an entry-level camera. This may be considered the Red GoPro, right? Because it actually technically is, right? That's the whole reason of the birth of the Komodo. Netflix came to Red and asked them to create a camera so Netflix could stop accepting GoPro footage, right? That was literally the whole reasoning for the birth of the Komodo in the very beginnings. And now it just evolved into a completely standalone camera system. So keep all that into perspective, right? It is an entry-level camera, it is like a Red action camera, but it's also a little minimalist cinema camera, right? Of pro-level status. The next thing we're gonna talk about is the media. There is no way to really get around this one. Obviously, you can skate at your own risk and really take a gamble and use non-approved Red media. However, I definitely do not recommend that. That is super dangerous. I would imagine if you're shooting on this camera, you are probably getting booked on jobs for it. I don't know in what world you exist in, but I know me personally, I am not gonna put my whole livelihood and future and career of my business on the line because I wanted to save a couple $100 on some little media cards, right? They are expensive, but it is one of those things where I would say, please don't risk that. Now, a couple months ago, I was sold a product to a guy here in LA, and he had his Komodo, he was showing it to me, and his little flap door here was open, and he had a cable hanging out of it, and bolted to his cage was a little like weird little block. And I was looking at that, and it took me a minute to really understand what was going on there. He had a dummy CFast card and a cable running out to an external SSD. I see things like that and I'm like, oh my God, that's such a huge gamble. And I know the way I work on the jobs that I do. I'm currently shooting a feature film. We go from dolly to easy rig to gimbal, back to dolly, back to easy rig, going handheld. We do all these configurations in one day easily, multiple times. So I just know the way I operate, I want to keep the media secured inside the camera. I don't even want to go that crazy route. But again, it's how I work. Now, if this camera was just living on a tripod, maybe you had cables hanging all over it and no one would care. The option I'm going to present to you is the Angel Birds. Now, Angel Birds was the #1 first approved CFast by Red, and now Red have combined with Angel Bird, and now they have their really cool, you know, Red insignia engraved CFast cards on the Red website. Again, that's getting away from the minimalist price tag, but it's all in whatever you want to shell out for. But what I have found is the best deal is you can get these 2 packs of the 256 gigabyte CFast from Angel Bird, 2 of them for $400. That's $200 per card, top of the line CFast media. You're not gonna go wrong there. I haven't had any problems with that. Now, a lot of people are always confused, like, why do I buy CFast that are so small, right? 256 gigabytes is kind of small in terms of talking about Red Code RAW. The reality is, though, we're shooting this feature film in 6K 2:4:1, medium quality MQ R3D RAW, and we get a half hour for every 256 gigabyte CFast card, right? But I've talked about this in the past in my AKS video, but I'll briefly hint on it again. The reason why I choose to shoot on low cards is because I shoot in the narrative world, and I like to just constantly have the cards in rotation. Because if I decide to shoot a whole entire day on a 1 terabyte CFast, God forbid anything happens, someone, you know, accidentally taps something or something goes wrong, whatever the case may be, power failure, I don't know, a million things could happen. And that 1 terabyte CFast card gets wiped. You are in big, big trouble there, right? So I just like an old school workflow. Let's keep the cards to a minimum and let's keep them in constant rotation. And I always push, I mean, even on this feature film I'm working on right now, I push for them to hire a PA whose designated job was media wrangler, right? Someone that can sit there, monitor the footage while it's dropping, because I've been on crazy passion projects helping friends out where they're dropping footage on their laptop in their kitchen. We go in and then realize, oh, someone moved the laptop and the card got yanked out, right? There's tons of problems where I always push for let's have a designated media wrangler on set monitoring this stuff, check the file sizes after you transfer, make sure they're the exact same size, all of this stuff, right? But I just come from that old school of thought, and that's how I like to operate. Now again, if you're working in the documentary world or the live event world, you're not really going to be able to operate like that. I understand that. So yeah, you may need to reach for larger cards. If you guys know my videos, you know I am a huge fan and user of the Outrigger handle, but I took this off for the video because it just doesn't make sense for a minimalist price tag, right? This is a $500 handle with record control. I love it, I recommend it, but I don't recommend it if you're trying to make a true minimalist rig. I've had this small rig side handle since my GH5 days, back 2 years ago when I first started doing YouTube videos, right? You may remember it. But I'm sure all of you have one of these. This is a 4-inch NATO rail. I believe this one's made by Nicey Rig. There's links to all of this stuff in the description down below if you want to check it out for yourselves. But yeah, this runs like $10 and now you have a NATO. I am a huge fan of NATO rails. I've talked about it over and over again. And the biggest thing is the convenience. You don't need tools to attach any of this stuff, just your little fingers. And then this bad boy, this runs you like 40 bucks. This is a small rig NATO side handle. What's cool about this one is it has a built-in NATO rail on the top, right? Again, I mean, you probably already have this. I had this laying around. I've been trying to sell this for like 2 years and you know. So it's as easy as this, right? You just slide it on and you bolt it down. Now we have a side handle and it's adjustable and it's quick to pop on and off to, you know, throw into your shoulder bag and away you go. And you'll notice I have this little lens on here. This is a little tiny Canon 40mm Pancake lens. It's an f2.8, so it's not super fast, but look how tiny this thing is. This thing is awesome. I kind of decked it out. This is a sim ring from Simod Lens, just so I can put bigger filters or put a little clamp on matte box on here. Although this is a very tiny lens, so I wouldn't recommend using like a real matte box on this. Maybe if you have something like the old school wooden camera Zipbox Pro or something like that. Little tiny lens. Here's where I came across this. In my stubbornness, I have refused to upgrade to the newer Ronin, and so I'm still shooting on the Ronin S. And I just needed a way when I'm self-shooting for just little passion projects or just stupid little goofy videos for here on YouTube, I needed something that was easier for me to run and gun with myself, right? And what's cool about this little Pancake Canon lens is it has a little clutch on here, so I can go from autofocus to manual focus in just a matter of 1 second to pop that in. And the autofocus is actually really dang decent on the Komodo. And I've shown here in the past where I've used the tap to autofocus when on the Ronin S. And the reason why I needed a smaller lens is because, you know, the Komodo is a little hard to balance on the Ronin S with a true lens. But this thing has really come in handy. It also is a macro lens, so I just want to point that out. These little Canon lenses are so good that GDU, Global Dynamics United, which is Jared Land's sister company, they have rehoused them, and this is what you saw in the intro. So this is the 24mm f2.8 Canon lens. GDU just rehoused these little Pancake lenses, so they also have the 40mm of this one. The one downside I will say, if you go this GDU route, just know that their lenses are autofocus only. And I believe that's because they were originally designed for drone work and stuff like that, because they're the little tanks. They're gonna last forever. And here's some samples of me where shooting the feature film, I'm in the car, and that was one thing where I said, okay, we're driving on this bumpy dirt road. Let's throw the Komodo on the Ronin S, and I'll throw on this little Canon Pancake lens, and we'll just set it and forget it. Now, I know that ND is a bit of an issue, and when it comes to ND, I don't get too crazy. I don't like really messing around with variable NDs. I'm a big fan of Firecrest IR NDs. They are one of the top of the line industry standard. This one is a 1.8, so this is a big boy, right? This is a 6-stop ND. Probably wouldn't recommend going that heavy. I think I just have this because Firecrest sent this to me, actually. I would recommend probably a 1.5. So if you throw on a 5-stop ND, that's pretty decent, and that's gonna cover you in any outdoor daylight situation pretty decently. But I wanted to throw it in the kit because I think it's a solid buy. I picked this up on the used market here in LA for 80 bucks. And even if you were to buy this brand new, I'm pretty sure it's as low as like 160 or 180 or something like that. So you can get it for super cheap, but chances are you're definitely gonna be able to find this on the used market. 40 mil on a 17:9 sensor, Super 35 sensor is pretty dang good. Because this awesome small rig NATO side handle has a top NATO on the top, we can take this little small rig NATO monitor mount. This is a little pricey, it runs about 60 bucks, but I've had this for years. It's so perfect. And the reason why I have that is because now I'm going to attach this little Joby cell phone monitor mount. I take my iPhone 11 and I pop this in here. Now, check that out. Now it's pretty nuts, right? No cables, 0 cables here. 0 cables, and with this, the Red Control app is really, really dang good. They have actually, if you don't know about it, they made it exclusively for the Red Komodo, and it's really nice. You can access all of your settings with the iPhone 11. You can have a bigger, brighter screen. It's super easy to use the tap to autofocus. I've shown how the autofocus is pretty dang good. It's still in beta, and to be quite frankly honest with all of you, I have never used autofocus until owning the Red Komodo, which I know is nuts because it seems kind of backwards. Like, this dude never used autofocus before? Never did. So this is it, guys. This is a super, super minimalist rig right here. I mean, you can just see how tiny this is, and this is it, you know? This is it. So for under 7 grand, which is the price that I paid just for the Stormtrooper brain, right? You could have this little setup, right? You could be up and rolling, shooting with the Komodo for under 7 Gs, right there, 6980. That's keeping it in perspective. That's keeping it real, guys. So next time you hear someone say, oh, it's gonna be 10 grand, say, actually, let's keep things in perspective here. That's not true, right? I know nobody likes being that guy, but I like being that guy because I am a big proponent of, as I'm saying, let's keep things into perspective, okay? So I just hope that clears the air for some people. And yeah, and if you have any other suggestions or whatever for any new Komodo users, drop it in the comments down below. If you're interested in checking out behind the scenes, seeing how I get jobs, how, you know, things are going from the production status through Dog Times Productions on a working career level, that is what we do over on the Dog Times Patreon community. So there's links down in the description below to all of that for all of you to check it out. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.
All right.